We're moving into, believe it or not, the last part of our summit, which is looking at arts-based approaches, talking about climate. And up next, we have a workshop with the Youth Climate Lab, and this will be presented by Rae Landriau. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. Passionate about sharing their love for science and nature, Rae founded the Create Change Collective, a community-based organization dedicated to making environmental education more accessible. Through artistic mediums, they engage individuals in climate action. And today, Rae will be leading us in an interactive session with collaging and visioning together. So welcome, Rae.
Super, thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Super, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So today I'll be taking you through a Collaging Climate Emotions workshop. So I'm Rae and I'm located in Ottawa, which is the lands of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Territory Nation. And as a settler on this land, I think it's also really important to think about my relationship to the land and the stewards of it. And one way that I like to do that is through language. So Ottawa, which is derived from Adaawe, which means to trade, and it's referring to the importance of Kitchissippi or the Ottawa River as a really important trade route. And so actually Youth Climate Lab, the organization that I represent, has also been founded in Ottawa. And so I think it's really nice to have this sort of moment to ground ourselves and think about the place that we're joining in from and calling in from. And I also encourage you to take a few moments to reflect on how you connect to the lands, waters that you live on, how your relationship and holds your community through your work and how that connects and grounds you to the land. So this is just a stock photo that I was able to find online, but this is a pretty resemblance scene of what Ottawa looks like currently. Lots of skating on the canal, lots of being outside in nature. We're just getting a whole bunch of snow today as well. So thinking about the land and the water and the overall ecosystem as well. And so again, Youth Climate Lab, the organization that I represent, is a youth-led global nonprofit that seeks to support and strengthen a generation of leaders to shake up the status quo of climate inaction. And so our vision for young people is that no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, that they develop the skills and abilities to catalyze transformative climate action in their communities, all the way to the highest levels of decision making. So that's really about empowering folks to continue on this work and to do their best within this space. And so recognizing that there's lots of ways to engage in this conversation today, we'll do a little bit of an overview, and then we'll have a really cool collaging activity. So with all of those different levels of engagement and ways to collectively come together, feel free to use the chat or unmute and just share through the mic. And I'll keep an eye out for all of those as well. And so we'll also be using this resource called also in Kitchissippi here. Oh, it's lovely to see. So I'm going to put in the chat right now Adobe Express, which is the collaging platform that we'll be using, and also as well as a resource with it. And we'll get to that in just a moment, but just so that you folks have that before we get started. And so I'm sure that we all have a variety of emotions, especially when it comes to climate. And so I would like to put it out to the room. When you think about climate, how does that make you feel? So take a couple of moments to reflect and share a few words in the chat if you're comfortable with doing so. One word that climate and nature feels for me is transformative. Find a lot of my own creativity. Stephanie just put in chat overwhelmed, numb. Those are like really, really common as well in people, especially with the constant news cycles that we've been hearing, sad, devastated, inspired, and awe. So we're getting a lot of these contrasting emotions as well. Thank you for putting those in the chat, Annette. Tired, yes, absolutely. I think tired is one of those things. And I find that climate can also be rejuvenating in ways. So again, we're coming up with a lot of these emotions and feelings that are on all sorts of spectrums. And so thank you everyone for sharing. I know it isn't easy to tap into those emotions. Many of us try to like hide away and not choose to feel, especially those negative emotions that seem to be so all-encompassing these days. And so these really are climate emotions. These are what we're mapping out together. There's feelings that emerge from living in the climate crisis, from working directly and indirectly to address it, and from being a part of a community and ecosystem that's working to bring climate justice for all. And so there's many climate-related emotions that are often categorized as negative. Climate emotions really range from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. And I think we really saw that here in this chat of scared and afraid, overwhelmed to awe, and longing and grounded and optimistic. And it can make us feel outraged, overwhelmed, and again, that optimism point, that hope piece. But at the heart of it all, I think it's rooted in radical care and love for the planet. We're feeling all of these complex emotions and feelings because we care, because we want the planet, people, our communities to all be able to thrive and succeed. And yeah, definitely retweeting longing is a really big one. And so in that realm of radical care and love that really catapults us into action, hope and persistence and resistance, I wanted to read just a short quote. So these are climate emotions from the scholar Audre Lorde, a Black poet, also an activist. And it goes, "Our real power comes from the personal. Our real insights come from living, from deep knowledge within us that arises from our feelings. Our thoughts are shaped by our tutoring. Our feelings are most genuine paths to knowledge. They are sometimes chaotic, sometimes painful, sometimes contradictory, but they come from deep within us. And we must key into those feelings and begin to extrapolate from them, examine them for new ways of understanding our experiences. This is how new visions begin, how we begin to posit a new future nourished by the past. This is what I mean by matter following energy and energy following feeling. Our visions begin with our desires," which is just a really nice place-basing quote. And I think understanding climate emotions through this lens and climate-related emotions can be a really powerful tool to connect us within that deep longing that's within us to be one with nature, the anger and frustrations that we may feel emerging from barriers established by systematic oppression that prevents us from accessing nature, that feels like it's robbing our future, access to nature, all of that. And it also provides to us a way to reimagine and realize a more equitable, just, and climate resilient future for all. And so today we're going to be collaging, and this is just one that I found online, bit more drawing aspects in here. And so using art And storytelling really brings these perspectives in a very tangible, emotional, and relatable way. We've all heard the quote before, a picture is 1,000 words. And really, it can be a really powerful tool for us to express feelings that we may not even have words for. And it challenges the colonial structures of knowledge and associated expectations that lessons are detached from emotion and unrelated to other teachings. And climate change is about people, stories, the most powerful, vulnerable, and holistic way of centering conversation around communities and people. And so art as a form of climate action can be anything from storytelling, digital art, collective visioning, to collaging, and really anything and everything in between. And ultimately, it seeks to do what it's seeking to do is to bring us together with communities and to understand and reflect and express our emotions and our climate change related feelings, and offer a more accessible way of sharing stories and experiences. And so for the next, as long as I'm on time, yeah, for the next 15 minutes, we'll have some options for you folks to explore Adobe Express, which is the link that I shared just a little bit earlier in the chat, and I can pop back in as well. And so really in this time, we'd like you either in smaller groups in little breakout rooms, if you'd like to have some discussion, or if you'd like some more quiet reflection on your own, feel free to stay in the main room where it'll just be a little quieter space. But really our goal is to get you thinking about some of these questions here on the screen. So if you had to describe your climate-related motions, your colors, shapes, and touch, what does it look like? What does radical care for you, for the lands and waters look like? Where do you catch glimpses of a regenerative future today? What does a just climate resilient future look like to you? How does it feel? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? And all of these are prompts that have been carefully selected from All We Can Save. Lovely, lovely resource if you have not heard of it before. Yes, I can drop the prompts into the chat if you want to stop the recording.